Tesla is bringing its newest production vehicle to its showrooms in some East Coast locations for the first time, so that potential, and many actual, customers will be able to check it out in person. The carmaker will have Model 3 demo units on display at showrooms in New York, Boston and Miami starting this week, CNBC reports. The Model 3 will be on display in Manhattan's Meatpacking District showroom and the Tesla location on Boston's Boylston Street, per CNBC, as well as in its Miami customer facility. The car, which starts at $35,000 without incentives, is also at Tesla's LA and Palo Alto galleries, but it's still not shipping at the rates that Tesla was hoping it would by this time. The carmaker's most recent shipment numbers show that it had made under 3,000 vehicles in total as of January 1, way behind its anticipated 5,000 per week target. It's been improving the speed at which it can make the cars, however, and claims to expect to be able to churn out 2,500 per week by the end of the first quarter of 2018. If Tesla can spare a car or two to put in showrooms around the country, that's a good sign that it's catching up on its production queue. Tesla CEO Elon Musk has said previously a few times that the company was essentially anti-advertising the car in the past, simply because it had so many pre-orders in the books already and no clear path to general inventory availability for buyers not in the queue.
The Nissan Leaf is far and away the best-selling electric car in the UK, making up more than 40% of pure EV sales in 2017. Now there's a new one, and it represents a complete overhaul, with new styling, more range and some clever new technology. We headed to the international launch in Tenerife to get behind the wheel and see if the second-generation Leaf can continue its predecessor's sales dominance. Traditionally, price has been a stumbling block to EV uptake. With new technology requiring heavy investment from car makers, costs were recouped in the price of the car. However, that's starting to change, because the entry-level Vizia model is £1,500 cheaper than its predecessor at £21,990, while the top-spec Tecna trim starts at £27,490. Couple that with the fact that running costs are much lower than in conventionally powdered vehicles, Nissan reckons about 85% less, and the financial side becomes very appealing. Entry-level Leafs lack the premium feel of the higher trims but still have some appealing kit on board. Standard equipment includes cruise control, LED rear lights and daytime running lights, and a 7-inch infotainment screen. Take a step up to Ascenta to get a leather steering wheel, adaptive cruise control and Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, while in-connector models get 17-inch alloy wheels, privacy glass and a part leather interior. All of the interesting kit is on the fully loaded Tecna trim, with full LED headlights, a heated leather steering wheel and seats, and a decent 7-speaker Bose audio system. It's also here that you'll find Nissan's clever ProPilot semi-autonomous driving assistant features. Those who have driven the old Leaf will notice similarities in the new model, but there's been a massive improvement in material quality, design and ambience. The leather steering wheel is comfortable to hold and the 7-inch touchscreen is easy to use, even if the graphics are totally outdated. On the top-spec model we tested, dashboard materials look high quality but feel hard and cheap to the touch, though the leather upholstery does make up for that somewhat. Otherwise, the only real complaint is visibility, as the pillars in all four corners are quite thick, which isn't ideal in a city car. Electric cars are generally fun to drive around town because electric motors offer high torque from a standstill and therefore acceleration is punchy, and the Leaf is no different. It's also quiet even at motorway speeds, with impressive levels of refinement not typical to the Japanese car maker's range. The new e-pedal mode ramps up the regenerative braking to replenish the battery whenever you take your foot off the throttle. Nissan has tuned it so that once you get the hang of it, you can drive most of your journey with one pedal, braking for corners by simply lifting off the throttle. It works well and noticeably improves range. Meanwhile, the ProPilot semi-autonomous technology works well. Out on the motorway it will keep up with traffic and even guide you in your line, while a park mode lets you take your feet off the pedal so the car can park itself. And it's no gimmick, because we tried it and it works. The official NEDC figure is 235 miles, but anyone who's driven an EV will know that these figures are notoriously unrealistic. Instead, Nissan prefers to tout the 177-mile range it achieved on the new WLTP combined cycle, which should be more realistic. Our test route involved driving up and down a mountain, so it was impossible to gauge how realistic that is, but with the aid of the e-pedal regenerating lost energy it's entirely plausible. That means the average motorist would only have to recharge their vehicle once a week. Nissan has already taken 12,000 orders in the 3 months since the new Leaf was revealed, with more than half of those from people who previously owned a Leaf. You can order one now, but if you want to see it in the metal first, dealers will start to receive them at the end of the month. The Leaf officially launches on February 2nd, with the first deliveries to start shortly after.
Subaru sells emotion. Their entire marketing strategy is about love, which is actually a pretty accurate take on how we buy cars. There's very little logic in a lot of our buying decisions. Consider how much time some of us spend in our vehicles. There's nothing wrong with picking an automobile that gives you some sense of happiness. That's led to a rise in SUV sales, because big cars make Americans happy. Seeing the market for SUV grow while not having one its own to sell, Subaru introduced the Crosstrek, a crossover that will appeal to buyers looking for an all-wheel drive in a big, but not too big, package. Starting at $21,795, the Crosstrek is an inexpensive entry into the crossover market from a company best known for its all-wheel drive vehicles. Throw in 8.7 inches of ground clearance, an upgraded infotainment system and up to 33 miles per gallon, and it's no surprise that the Crosstrek's sales have increased year over year since its introduction in 2014. If only the engine had a bit more get up and go from the engine. Behind the wheel, the Crosstrek smooths out road bumps and potholes splendidly for a car in its price range. While I was unable to find any appropriate off-road locations in the Bay Area that didn't require me to break a host of local laws, the streets in my San Francisco neighborhood are currently being ripped up by construction crews. These mangled avenues gave us a good indication that even when faced with asphalt drop-offs, ruts and speed bumps, the crossover delivers a comfortable ride. That ride doesn't translate into a switchback munching, cornering machine, but it can hold its own during everyday driving on the Cloverleaf Highway off-ramp and around the corners of the local subdivision. Not that you can push the Crosstrek too much into those turns. With a 2-liter, 4-cylinder boxer engine putting out 152 horsepower and 145 pounds of torque, the small SUV needs a good, long runway to get up to freeway speed. The 0 to 60 time is about 9 seconds. So sit back, relax, and don't expect to go blasting onto the highway. While we pine for a turbo shoved under the hood, overall the Crosstrek drives better than its price would suggest. That value proposition continues on the inside as well. The front and back seats are both comfortable and this new model is also roomier than the previous generation, which was introduced in 2014. The trunk, meanwhile, has enough space for a couple to take a weekend getaway, even if they overpack. Plus, the rear seats fold down to increase the space for an entire week's jaunt with plenty of room for some sporting equipment too. In addition to expanding the cabin, Subaru added its latest infotainment system, called Starlink, a marked improvement over the technology it replaces. Though the design and UI feel reminiscent of a budget tablet, it's still better looking and easier to use than a lot of other systems on the market. It does suffer from some latency issues, though, especially when you're swiping left and right. Also, my taps on icons were occasionally met with a 2-second delay. Still, the time between tap and action usually wasn't any worse than the rest of the systems on the market. Fortunately, Starlink supports both Android Auto and CarPlay for your portable computer needs. Above the touch screen, you have a choice of 6.5 or 8 inches. It's an additional display that I found quite useful. With it, you can see additional information like the time, weather, average fuel consumption and turn-by-turn directions, to name a few examples. The rest of the dash and controls can only be described as utilitarian. Subaru isn't known for its cutting-edge controls design layout. It's nice if you're tired of searching for or trying to decipher a button or knob. But it lacks any real flair. Instead, most of the design team's efforts seem to have gone into the exterior. Though this compact SUV has some striking lines and angles, it still doesn't come close to the aggressive corners and fins you'll find on something like the new Honda Civic. The design is softer, so as to appeal to a broader group of customers. During elevated seat drives we got a chance to check out Subaru's driver assistance package EyeSight. The adaptive cruise control did a fine job in both moving traffic and gridlock. But if you come to a stop and the car isn't moving again after a few seconds, the system will shut off. It does have an audible alert to tell you it's about to hand control back to the driver. Still, if you're stuck in non-stop stop-and-go traffic with multiple long pauses, this can get annoying. The lane assist feature, meanwhile, is more of a suggestion. It helps you stay in your lane while you're actively driving, but it's not really made to keep the car on track for long stretches like Tesla's autopilot feature. Instead, it just sort of nudges you if you're veering too close to the edge of your lane. Sadly, EyeSight is not available on the base-level Crosstrek. That option starts at $1,400 for the mid-level premium trim and $2,100 for the high-end limited trim. Without the added safety feature, the Crosstrek, even with its lack of power, is a fun all-wheel drive value that has the potential to win the brand even more fans. Sure, the Subaru Forester has more cargo space and starts at only about $1,000 more, but it's a wagon and people seem to be in love with SUVs. It's that love that Subaru is counting on.